Comes to the needs for the infrastructure funding, where does the role or the balance play out between the local ponying up, the state ponying up, and the federal ponying up?
What we're seeing across the country is at the state level a recognition that the federal government, while it's continuing to support transportation investment, really over the last decade has not shown an inclination for significant boost in federal funding. And so states are increasingly recognizing that they are going to have to be a critical part of addressing their challenges within the state. And we're seeing states like Pennsylvania and Maryland in the last year move forward with significant transportation packages, really a recognition that the solutions are not going to come strictly from Washington, that at the state level it's going to be very critical that states also address the need for increased transportation investment.
And then how effective has the message been to when you try to boil it down to, I guess what you would call the individual motorist, whether it's their direct costs in terms of potholes or congestion or just a regional perspective, how much does that message resonate compared to just we need X number of millions of dollars to make this work?
We think ultimately the public is going to decide through their elected officials how to move forward. And so we think our reports are critical to point out that there is certainly a cost of making the improvements that are needed, but there's an even more significant cost for not addressing these challenges. And so we think our report allows the public to really weigh the cost of making the improvements and not making the improvements. And we think that when they look at the numbers, they'll recognize that investing in transportation is going to save them money.
What do you see from your experience with the committee that you're on in terms of transportation? What are the top priorities to get done in terms of highway infrastructure?
One of the top priorities, obviously, to me is maintaining existing roads, obviously, to reduce some of the congestion. But to relieve the congestion is one of the major projects. It will be the I-74. That is vital to improvements along US 52 to reduce the amount of traffic that is on US 52 that would be diverted to along I-74.
Now, do you have any sense in Congress where the 74 project would be in terms of priority?
From a local perspective, we want it to be up there really, really high, like number one. But on a statewide project, at this point, the state is in the process of determining the new transportation prioritization process. So we don't know where it's going to fall.
Given the nature that there's a local, state, and federal government element to the funding for highway and transportation, you see, was handed out a letter that Governor McCrory and 20-some other governors have asked the federal government and Congress to continue to provide funding from a federal perspective. How much are you convinced that you can get the same level of support from state government, given the nature of, seems like everywhere you turn, there's been requests to cut spending from state government rather than expand it?
Well, for I-74, there's a formula, and the federal government funds generally 90% of the road, and the state funds 10% of the road. So the state won't have any choice but to fund its portion. For other transportation, the case we're making is the economic development case. Without these roads, we will not be able to create jobs, which then creates more tax revenues. So it's invest today and reap the benefits tomorrow, or sit back and do nothing, and you're strangling the state's economic priorities from that standpoint. So I hope that when the state legislature sees the economic impact and how these roads can help with job creation and add to the tax base, that they'll see it as an investment rather than just an expense.
Right. So do you feel like this kind of lobbying effort will help them connect dots that either they already know and choose not to look at, or do they need that much education on this?
I think that intuitively people understand that, but what we're doing right now, and we'll be debuting in another month or so, is on I-74 an economic impact statement being done by economists at Winston-Salem State that will show in dollars and cents the economic potential for that road. And I think when they see how significant that is and what we're losing if we don't build that road, it'll help them make the case throughout the state for that kind of investment.